Today we're breaking down the 2025 budget, and this one definitely didn't get off to a normal start. Before the Chancellor even stood up, the entire document was mistakenly published online. The Speaker had to step in and say that the level of leaks fell well below what Parliament expects. Major announcements are supposed to be delivered to MPs first, not the media. Once things settled, the government pushed a message of investment and stability, especially around the NHS and economic growth. But reading between the lines, the biggest revenue generator wasn't bold new taxes, it was simply freezing thresholds for longer. So let's start with income tax, because this is where a lot of expectations were completely flipped. Before the budget, almost everyone thought the Chancellor was gearing up to raise the basic rate of income tax. Some said it would be a 1p rise, others suggested a 2p. And the idea made sense. Income tax is one of the quickest and simplest ways to raise big revenue fast. There was also talk that she might cut national insurance at the same time, and that would shift the burden onto pensioners and landlords because those groups don't typically pay national insurance, so they wouldn't benefit from that offset. But instead of raising the basic rate, the Chancellor surprised everyone and left the income tax rates for workers exactly as they are. What she did do is freeze the thresholds again. The Conservative freeze was already due to last until 2028, but it's now been extended for another 3 years, taking us to 2031. That means the personal allowance stays at £12,570 and the higher rate threshold stays at £50,270 for the rest of the decade. This is expected to raise about £8.3 billion every year and will drag around 920,000 people into higher rate band. That's what we call fiscal drag. Your income rises with inflation, but the tax thresholds don't. So more of your pay gets taxed at higher rates, even though tax rates themselves haven't changed. This might sound like good news on the surface, after all, no headline tax rises, but it's more complicated. Because wages are going up and the thresholds aren't. A lot of people will still pay more tax, and by avoiding a straightforward rise in the basic rate, the government now has to find money in other areas. If spending pressures grow or the economy slows down, future budgets may have to revisit income tax anyway. For workers, the national living wage will increase again in April 2026. Over 21s will go from £12.21 to £12.71. 18 to 20-year-olds will rise to £10.85, and under 18s and apprentices will now be paid £8 an hour. It's good news for pay packets, but again, frozen thresholds means more of that increase is taxed. One of the biggest changes for families was the scrapping of the 2-child benefit cap, meaning parents can now claim support for more than 2 children. That's a major policy shift. Council tax was another area where expectations and reality didn't match. Many thought we might finally see a major overhaul. The current system is based on 1991 property values, which is crazy when you think about how much the housing market has changed. There was speculation about revaluation, new bands, maybe even a brand new top band aimed at high value properties. But instead of reforming the whole system, the Chancellor introduced something more targeted, basically a mansion tax. From April 2028, any property worth over £2 million will face a new high-value council tax surcharge. £2 to £2.5 million homes will pay an extra £2,500, and plus £5 million properties will pay up to £7,500. This will still be collected via the council tax system, but the money won't go to local councils. It goes straight to central government. This approach avoids tackling the long-standing problems with the council tax system because valuations are frozen in time. Many high-value homes still pay proportionately less than they would under an updated system. And while the surcharge will raise some money, It only affects a tiny number of properties, so it doesn't provide the stable funding councils often say they need. Now, while I did say the Chancellor didn't raise income tax, she has made changes to how investment income is taxed, specifically rental income, dividends and savings income. Landlords will now face higher tax rates on rental income from April 2027. Their basic rate will now be 22%, their higher rate 42%, and additional rate 47%. This applies only to England currently, leaving Scotland and Wales to set their own rental income tax rates. And dividend tax is also increasing. From April 2026, the ordinary dividend rate rises to 10.75%, and the higher rate rises to 35.75%. The additional rate stays where it is at 39.35%. For savers, there are a couple of major changes. From April 2027, the ISA allowance stays at £20,000, but at least £8,000 of it must be invested in stocks and shares, no longer all cash. The exception is for over 65s who can still keep the full £20,000 in cash if they prefer. And savings tax is also going up. Basic rate on interest rises from 20 to 22%, higher rate from 40 to 42%, and additional rate from 45 to 47%. Before the budget, analysts thought we might finally see big reforms to pension tax relief, maybe cutting the 25% tax-free lump sum, or replacing the current system with a flat rate so everyone gets the same level of support. Now, none of those big reforms happened. The core pensions tax relief system stays untouched. Instead, the government made changes to how contributions are taxed. From April 2029, salary sacrifice pension contributions above £2,000 a year will no longer be exempt from national insurance. That makes large salary sacrifice arrangements less tax efficient. Leaving the core pension system untouched means higher earners continue to benefit more from tax relief than basic rate earners. These reliefs cost the government a huge amount, which increases pressure to raise funds from elsewhere. At the same time, reducing the tax advantage around salary sacrifice and ISAs hits younger workers and savers more, the people still building up their pension pots, not those who already have large ones. Electric vehicle owners will see the introduction of a new mileage tax from 2028, 3 pence per mile for fully electric cars, and 1.5 pence per mile for plug-in hybrids. This still keeps electric vehicles cheaper to run than petrol and diesel, but the gap closes slightly. And HMRC is getting new powers to tackle fraudulent directors and promoters of tax avoidance schemes. Apprenticeship training for under 25s will now be free for small businesses. The sugar tax will extend to sweetened milk drinks from 2028. And the national insurance relief for hiring veterans is extended until 2028. Employees will no longer be able to make a direct claim to HMRC for the cost of working from home, previously £6 per week. However, employers can still reimburse employees, where eligible, tax-free. From April 2026, employers can reimburse home working equipment, eye tests and flu jabs without any tax or national insurance. A small win, but a sensible one. Corporation tax stays at 25%, but late filing penalties double from April 2026. A new 40% first year allowance comes in for assets that don't qualify for full expensing, and the writing down allowance drops from 18 to 14%. Zero emission cars and electric charge points keep their 100% first year allowance until 2027, and the annual investment allowance remains at £1 million. So overall, this budget raises a lot of money quietly, mainly through freezing thresholds and tightening rules. If you want to understand how these changes affect your income, your business, or your tax planning, feel free to get in touch. And if you found this useful, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.